Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. This is your humble servant, Mr. Smith. And here's some more Beatles bashing. No, I don't consider it Beatles bashing. I just consider it the truth about the Beatles. Now, and also, why am I doing this? You know, some people say, let sleeping dogs lie, or I guess that's the term, right? Why not just let it be? Well, you know, it's important that people know that the reality of the entertainment industry. Because we have been so brainwashed and put in such a fantasy world by all of this music, TV shows, movies, and you see the result of it. We have a bunch of dysfunctional people that, can't have relationships because they're not in reality. They get married and then they realize that their wife or their husband wasn't what they thought, because what they thought was what was talked about in the movies and TV. But the reality is very different. So that's why I do stuff like this. And of course, the Beatles were one of the most influential musical acts ever. And as I mentioned before, and I'm going to do a longer video. This is just going to be a short one. I'm going to do a longer video. I'm going to have a little more time on Theodore Adorno, the man who allegedly wrote most of the Beatles songs. And how do we know this? Or how do we suspect or believe that he wrote most of their songs? Because guess what? When Michael Jackson bought the Beatles songs, he bought them from the, ready? Theodore Adorno estate. What? So we're gonna talk about Theodore Adorno, and we're gonna talk about him, and I got my research going. But let's just take care of this first. And another thing about the Beatles, and if you're a Beatles fan, aficionado, this might be a hard pill to swallow, but Bernard Purdie. Bernard Purdie was I think he's still alive, but he's pretty old now. Was a great drummer, and he was big in the 60s and late 50s. He did a lot of the Motown stuff. A lot of those old Motown songs you hear, that was him playing the drums. He also worked with Steely Dan in the early to mid 70s. And he has a famous groove called the Pretty Shuffle. And the late, great John Bonham and the late, great Jeff Porcaro, those are drummers, by the way, did their own versions of the Pretty Shuffle, or the Purdie Shuffle. Well, Bernard Purdie is quoted as saying that Ringo Starr did not play the drums on the early Beatles albums. Right? They brought in studio guys, and he was one of the studio guys that they brought in to play. And Quincy Jones allegedly confirms this as well. Now, those of you that are musicians know that it takes a much higher level of musicianship to record in a studio than to just play at your local club, bar, or concert. In other words, to play live. When you record music in a studio, you really have to know your instrument. You have to have subtleties, especially if you want to make it sound great, that is. You have to have subtleties, right? When playing into the mics, the way the drums are mic'd up, for example. You have to play with certain subtleties that usually don't develop until you're probably about 30 for most people, right? And of course, Ringo Starr was very young when the Beatles were formed. But again, I proposed the idea, and of course I've backed it up with evidence in my last video on Hey Jude, that the Beatles were a boy band, right? That's pretty much what they were. And their job was to make tons of money for the people that created them, and also to, as we're going to see, to socially engineer the population, to help bring in the age of Aquarius, bring in the hippie movement, bring in drug use. And again, a lot of people believe that John Lennon was murdered because he was going to start talking about that sort of thing. But let's take a look at Let It Be real quick. Just like we did with Hey Jude. I am of the belief, and I've heard this from other people, that Let It Be is actually another ode to the mother goddess, otherwise known as Semiramis, Ishtar, Esther, Easter, Diana in Roman culture. Okay, Ashtaroth, I think that's how you pronounce it, which goes back to Babylonian religion, which all religions pretty much today, major religions, are offshoots or variations of ancient Babylonian religions. Right? And if you don't know who Semiramis is, some people pronounce it Ceramyces. Okay? She was the woman that was immaculately inseminated on Easter. That's why her name's Easter. That's why they came up with Easter. And then she had a immaculately conceived child named Tammuz on December 25th. Right? And this was way before Christ came on the scene. It's right around, I believe, 700 BC when this religious concept came about. Anyway, and since the people that run this world are offshoots of the Romans, and the Romans' religions were based off of ancient Babylonian religions, they worship the mother goddess, right? So let's take a look at the official, what they, a mainstream description of why Let It Be was written and what the lyrics mean, and then we'll analyze it for its spiritual content. So here we go. Okay, so let's read this official explanation of how the song Let It Be, which is a lovely song. Hey Jude and Let It Be are lovely songs. Every time you hear them on the radio, you just want to sing along. And I think there's a reason for that. I mean, the people that ran the Beatles, created the Beatles from the Tavistock Institute, they are masters. And you're going to see Theodore Adorno was a master musician. They are masters at writing songs to tug at your heartstrings and get you to sing along. But anyway, let's read this. It says, though John Lennon once explained that he thought Paul McCartney's Let It Be was inspired by the Simon and Garfunkel hit Bridge Over Troubled Water, the idea actually came to McCartney after a dream about his mother. In March of 1970, the Beatles released the song as a single from their album of the same name, which was a year before Bridge Over Troubled Water was released. Let It Be topped the charts in several countries, including the United States, Australia, and Switzerland, and was ranked number 20 on the list of 500 greatest songs of all time, published by Rolling Stone. Because it was the last single released by the Beatles as a group, and because Let It Be was their final album, the song's message about releasing oneself from problems and sorrow is particularly apt. In his dream, McCartney encountered his mother, Mary, who died of cancer when he was 14 years old. McCartney has said of the song that he knew most listeners would assume that Mother Mary was a religious reference, a fact that annoyed John Lennon. In his dream, McCartney's mother told him not to worry, that everything would be all right. It was from this message that McCartney drew the subject of the song. All right, so number one, the real Paul McCartney, the first Paul McCartney, his mother was Mary, I'm assuming. So, but this is the second Paul McCartney, right? Who was his name was Billy Sheeran, I believe. Okay, so if you don't know about Paul, there were two Paul McCartneys. One, right, the one that died in 1966 in a car crash, and they needed to keep the Beatles' cash cow going. Their little experiment at the Tavistock Institute was working so well, they needed to keep the Beatles going. So they brought in Billy Sheeran, who was already a body double for the first Paul McCartney, and they just fooled the public into believing that he was Paul McCartney, and he's been making a living off playing music under the name Paul McCartney ever since. So my point is, this second Paul McCartney couldn't have written this song about his mother Mary, because that was not his mother. Now, because that was the first Paul's mother. Now, it says here that McCartney has said of the song that he knew most listeners would assume Mother Mary was a religious reference. And he's probably referring to the Mary, the mother of Christ. All right? But if you really study the Bible, Mary, Christ's mother, was just a woman. She was just a woman. She was not a goddess in any way, shape, or form. Even though, my friends that were raised Catholic will tell me that they actually worship the Virgin Mother over Christ. All right, so is the Catholic Church really have anything to do with Christ? Well, that's another discussion. But it doesn't seem so. In fact, the Roman Catholicism is very linked to ancient Babylonian religion, like I've stated before. And it seems that the Roman Catholics, the Vatican, unbeknownst to a lot of their Catholic constituents, are really worshiping Semiramis again. They just call her Mother Mary. You got to remember, these satanic fallen angels don't care what you call them. They can have many different names as long as you serve them. All right? So, maybe McCartney was right when he said that his song, Let It Be, would have a religious, most people think it was a religious reference. But not to Christ's Mother Mary, but the Mother Mary that he's referring to, in my humble opinion, is Ishtar, Easter, Esther, the Mother Goddess. The same Mary, Virgin Mary, that the Catholics worship. It's not the Mother of Christ. They're deceiving people. Now, if you study the scriptures, Christ was not immaculately conceived. It says it right in the scriptures that he was made in the flesh like any other man, right? He had a father, Joseph, and Joseph was from the same line of kings that King David was from, right? The line of Judah, the tribe of Judah. So Christ was born like any other person on this planet. He was not immaculately conceived. So why is the Catholic Church teaching that he was immaculately conceived? Because they're really hiding the fact that they worship Tammuz. And the Mother Mary they refer to as Semiramis. So I propose the idea that Paul McCartney wrote Let It Be. The second Paul McCartney wrote Let It Be as another reference, maybe not an ode, but a reference to the Mother Goddess Semiramis. So let's look at the lyrics. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Now, some people might interpret this as Mother Mary representing the Holy Spirit. Okay. The Holy Spirit, if you've listened to my previous videos, and some of you already know, she is female. She's feminine, right? You have the Father, who is male, right? The Most High God of all things. You have the Mother, you have the Holy Spirit, which is female. I guess you can see her as like your mother. And then you have the Son, right? Christ, right? That's the Holy Trinity. So, and the Holy Spirit, her name is Rawak in ancient Hebrew, right? Original Hebrew, which means wisdom. Okay? Now, and I went into that in a previous video. So, some people can interpret this as the Holy Spirit, but the Holy Spirit's name is not Mary. Okay, that's the only problem with that. Okay. Now, allegedly, right? Paul McCartney's mother was named Mary, but that was the first Paul McCartney. And would you call your mother Mother Mary? Like, my mother's name is Carol. I'd be like, Mother Carol comes to me. I don't think I would write a song like that. It just seems weird to me. Refer to my mom as Mother Carol. But, okay. So, and we also know that the Virgin Mary is really just in Catholicism, which means universal, right? Catholic means universal, right? So, and of course, the Beatles songs were written for a worldwide audience, a universal audience. And by the way, Theodore Adorno was allegedly involved in the Jesuit order. So there's all these connections there. So I propose the idea that Mother Mary is the Virgin Mary that is worshipped in the Vatican, and which is really Semiramis, the Mother Goddess. Easter, Ishtar, Esther, Ashtaroth, etc. So, let's read on. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me. Okay. It could be some sort of witchcraft ritual where they summon this spirit. Speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be. Okay. When all the broken-hearted people living in the world... I mean, it's a beautiful song. There will be an answer, let it be. Okay. So, again, and it's a pretty simple song. So Mother Mary is telling him words of wisdom. Again, some people might interpret it as the Holy Spirit. But again, the Holy Spirit's name is not Mary. And it seems closer... And I just don't think he's talking about his mother here. So, and of course, the Spirit just says, let it be, Don't question anything. It's almost like, yeah, let's all get stoned and just let it be. Don't question anything. Everything's fine. Everything's beautiful. This song is, has a very relaxing quality to it. And again, it could very well be that it was written to pacify people, which nowadays we don't need this. We need to be active. We need to be on our square. But anyway, I think I'll end it there. There is not much more to these lyrics, but you get the idea. This is your humble servant, Mr. Smith. Please like and subscribe, or don't like. And I'm sorry if you are a hardcore Beatles fan and this is your first time hearing this. But may the Most High bless you guys, and we will see you next time.